Oh, wait, where did I put my lucky rabbit's foot? My name is Prudence. You can call me Prue. This is Mason. Hi. So we run the Lucky Rabbits podcast, Lucky Rabbits talk show, and we're really lucky to have a guest today who's we're up in Canada. It's our first Canadian guest. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Max. I run my business called Celestial Harmony Readings and Reiki, and I provide readings and Reiki.
I love that. Very straightforward.
Very straightforward. Yeah.
Very nice to have you on.
Thank you.
So, do you want to start out just by talking about your practice and what you do?
Okay, so I work out of my home in St. Catharines, and I provide Reiki healing. It's more of an intuitive healing session rather than specifically just Reiki, because it started as just Reiki, but it's evolved beyond that. Like, there's other modalities that I can use if I need to and stuff like that. So that comes into it. And I do the readings as well at the shows, as you know.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, it's been a ride. It's been a ride. Yeah,
that's
been
awesome. So
professional
when you
for about.
do,
Sorry, go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
My mistake. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, don't worry. I was gonna ask, so with Reiki, what kind of Reiki do you do? Is it focusing on like stones or chakras or?
Well, what I do, it's an intuitive healing. So basically, Reiki, what it is it's universal love energy from the universe. I'm the conduit, and I direct it to parts of the body where it's necessary. Obviously, I can't do it on someone that I don't have their permission to.
Mhm.
Um, but then again, sometimes my aura just does its own thing, because I remember I was at one reading. I was doing a reading at one show, and I walked behind this person, and she said, "I'm getting a reading from you." I'm like, "Okay." She goes, "You just took my headache away, so I need to get a reading from you." I'm like, "Okay." So yeah, so,
Nice.
so just sometimes just me just being in the area will just do it. So it's kind of cool when that happens.
Oh, that is really cool. And so how long have you been doing it?
The Reiki, okay, so I've been a master for about 5 or 6 years, to be honest with you.
Wow.
And I do, and the Reiki I do is Holy Fire Karuna Reiki. So it's a myriad. Like each Reiki system has its own symbols. So I
Mhm.
use the Karuna, the Holy Fire, and their symbols intertwined with one another. So yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, Mason got a reading from one of the energy readers at that fair, and it was I think the first time you've had something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
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 Never had anything like that done. I kind of just sat there,
Mhm.
but I did sort of feel something, which I thought
Yeah.
was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely something that you seem to be really into that I was surprised, but everyone kind of is drawn to their own thing. I wanted him to get a reading there, but I also didn't want to kind of like force him to find a certain person. So I was like,
Mhm.
you're gonna dive and you're gonna find your person. And during my reading with you, we kind of just wandered off and found I think it was Elaine. And
Elaine is awesome. Yes, she's
yeah,
awesome.
I really like her energy.
Yeah, she's got great energy, and yeah, very, very, very angelic as well. She's
yeah.
very angelic. Yeah,
I found a
that's what
lot
I've
of
seen.
comfort. So that
Sorry.
was really I found a lot of comfort from her
Yeah.
energy.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And so with reading, so when I got a reading with you, I thought it was really interesting the way that you kind of include like libromancy, where you find a random page in the book and you point to it. How did you find like that as a modality?
That actually I just started doing it.
Yeah,
I
like it
wanted
clicked.
I wanted angel number. I wanted my angel number book because I wanted to know
Mhm.
what angel number mean. And then I just started doing it, and it just started when I started doing it in, like, I have a YouTube channel as well. It's Celestial Harmony Readings and Reiki.
Yeah.
I just started doing it when I was doing card pulls for the collective, the people that tune in. And I just started doing it. And it's like I started noticing that started just okay, so how I actually originally started the bookmancy, libromancy, or whatever term you have for it,
Yeah.
I would do readings, and I'd have cards with animals. So I
Mhm.
started with the animal book, And
Yeah.
if I pulled up an animal, I would read what that message is from the animal, right? Like, so if I pulled up a moose, I would read up, what does moose say? What is Moose's message to this person? Because I figured it had something to do with it. And then it was like, well, wait a minute. I was always giving angel numbers anyway, and I was doing it that way. I'm like, why don't I just give animal numbers, animal messages as well? So I just started like, it just sort of flowed. I don't know how it started, to be honest with you. I
Yeah,
just
that's
started
kind
doing it, and I liked it. I like doing it. It ties everything together when I do a reading, which I find really cool.
yeah,
Like,
that's how I felt.
I'm blown away by it every time I do it, because it's like here I am closing my eyes with going through the book, and it comes out, bang, it's what I just said to the person.
Yeah,
I
I
go,
know
okay.
with mine, you asked for me to pick an animal, and then you kind of chose an animal too. And I really resonated with the combination. I thought that that was a really cool thing. I mean, so I chose rabbit, and then you chose mongoose.
Right,
And those are really, that's like kind of a duality that I'm dealing with right now, as far
right.
as like soft, but also like protecting your peace, but also
Mhm.
protecting your peace through fighting for what you believe in.
Right.
I, yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. And you saw how I did it. I closed my eyes. So it's not like I'm picking, like I'm going through the book. Okay, what's going to be good for brew? No, I'm not doing that. So it's like, it's interesting. And every single time I do it, like usually when I ask everyone now, there's a bunch of questions I ask now that, as I've been doing these shows, I've started seeing that I got to ask these questions.
Mhm.
Like, for example, when I close my eyes, I see a number. That's the number of cards I pull. And
Interesting.
sometimes it's usually about 7 or 8 for the most part. So I started, I never did this before, and I started asking, does something mean anything to you? They're like, yeah, actually, it's the day I was born. And I'm like, okay, well, now I got to start asking this question all the time, right? So
Yeah,
it's kind of like it's kind of like it flowed into its own thing, and it just happened like very gradually. Because
that's fun.
if you were to look up any of my readings from like eons ago, because I've
Mhm.
been doing this for a while, they'd be completely different than what I do now.
I love that.
Yeah, I guess like over time you sort of just mold like into
Yeah.
what you're meant to be doing, I would
Well, that's
guess.
it. That's
Yeah.
it. You're right. Yeah, and it kind of takes on almost like a thing of its own, right? Like, because I mean, there's certain things that other readers at um, that particular show can do that I can't.
Mhm.
Yeah, you
So
guys
it's like,
are all really eclectic.
yeah, it's interesting how, like, for example, I had a conversation with one of the other persons, and I said, well, I when I channel heaven, this is what I saw, and he's like, well, you can't do that. I'm like, okay, but I can, and I've been told I can. So, like, who do I believe, you or them? Everyone else that, and then what I've been doing for my entire career. So, so like whatever. It's like,
Yeah, you
okay,
kind of have to
maybe you
trust your
can,
instinct. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the intuitive part of the reading.
Yeah, you do
right?
what you feel comfortable doing for
Right. So I'm
yourself
like,
and for other
so I
people.
just resolved myself that perhaps he can't channel that the way I do, and I can't channel the way he does. And that's the only way. And that's the only way. That's the only thing I can think of how that works.
Exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. I was just saying we were talking about the fair in another episode we did, but I was talking about if you're getting readings, you really should. I think some people just go to the same person all the time. And
They do.
I think it's important to kind of mix in other people and get different reads of your energy through different other people with different energy.
Well, I agree with you. And the thing is like I think I told you when you first came to my booth, go around and see who you resonate with, because I may be your guy. I may not be your guy. And I'd rather you go to your guy and get a good reading than come to me and get not a good one.
Yeah.
Because like, I play a little game when I do those shows. It's like, I know who's going to come. Like, I knew you were going to come to me. But it's like I play a little game. It's like, okay, so when are they gonna the game is, when are they gonna realize they want a reading from me? And I know that sounds cocky. It's not. It's not meant to be cocky. It's just a little thing. And I'm right 90% of the time. So
Yeah. It's also a good practice of your intuition to try to kind of
well, exactly.
you got to make the guesses, you got to make the feeling kind of, or like call out the feeling, really.
Right. Right.
I'll say I wasn't planning on getting a reading, but by the time we were back at I think even by the time we were back at the car, I was like, he's got the energy that I would really like to hear from. Really, it was immediate. I was like, if I get a reading, it's going to be from him, which was a hard choice because all of you guys, I mean, if we had
They're all
unlimited time,
fantastic. They're
I
all
would have
fantastic at that show.
everyone.
All fantastic. I don't have a bad thing to say about any one of those people that were there. They are all fantastic.
They were all so friendly. We were really intimidated when we went in.
Mhm.
And immediately we sat down at a table at first. We were like, all right, we're kind of nervous. And
and what was her name? The first person by the door to the right. I can't remember what her business name
I can't remember her name. She's
yeah.
new. She's new. Yeah, she's kind of new.
She walked over and immediately made eye contact and started talking to us. And from there, we just spun around. She kind of sparked the comfort. Yeah.
Right.
Which was nice. I do want to ask you too about like the angel work. You said you work with a lot of angels.
Right.
Or like angel energy. It's interesting. I was looking back at the cards because I took a picture. A couple of archangels came up in Mason's reading, and they were all in the reading that you did too, which is kind of, it's kind of that cool thing where like two people can do different readings, but the same information can come up and be like differently interpreted too.
Well, that's it. And the beautiful part is like for example, I've given very specific predictions, and I've given actual timelines as to when this stuff's supposed to happen, and they're like, "Well, that's what the other three psychics that I went to said," and I'm like, "Okay, well, it's good that I'm not completely off, right?" So, there is a method to what we do, and not a method, but not so much a method. It's not really scientific. It's more heartfelt. So, like, if you have control over your heart, you're gonna have your intuition, right? Like, you're gonna be able to feel the feelings. Like there was a point during my journey where I would watch the Super Bowl and I'd feel the nerves of the players. And I'm like, why am I nervous? I'm not playing, right? I love football. Don't get me wrong. I used to play, but I'm not playing. Why am I feeling nervous for them? It was just funny.
Yeah, well, there are probably, I mean, I don't really do a lot of sports spectating, but you kind of are part of the game in being the audience. You kind of are like on both teams in a way. Well, what team you're on, kind of your favorite, but
Sorry, you broke
they
up.
wouldn't be doing it without an audience.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have any experiences that you want to share? I mean, so into the
like I would like to talk how I started all this. Like, for example, like when I was a kid, I would have dreams, and I'd be dreaming of the church that I would go to. It was a Catholic church, and I would dream that there was like a checkerboard type wood sort of finish. And I remember one dream when I was about 3 years old. The slide, it was like the back of the panel, which is in a box. Like it was like like it was raised wood and a flat panel at the back, right? So like, and there were boxes. So I remember my dream, and my dream had where one of the boxes open and a little Muppet was there. And it was playing with me. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I remember that dream, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then and I never really thought about it until recently, where it's like, okay, well, maybe that was the beginning. Because they're playing with me, like these are angels playing with me, right? Because it does have a religious connotation. Now I don't subscribe to any sort of religion. I'm spiritual, and I believe in Jesus. Don't get me wrong, I totally do. And I believe in stuff like that. But I don't think, and maybe I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, I don't know if any religion has it right.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean? Because any sort of organized religion, because religions are created by man. And the way I see it, like I see the psychology and sociology of it all as well, because I study that. And it's like, you're controlling the masses, man. Like that's what they're doing. They're just controlling the population so that they don't rise up against them.
Yeah, and so many of them have such common themes and repeating things that don't know if you know, there's a society, the Theosophical Society,
Mhm.
and they talk a lot about how almost all religions have the same pillars, have the same events, a lot of similar
Yeah.
stories. I mean, even like Greek mythology has that same like great flood story.
Mhm.
Uh, and so there is this thing where there's kind of like a universal religion that's just been factionized. And
Right.
so you can really find those energies without having to go through like a priesthood or a
Right.
clergy. Yeah.
Right. And the other thing that I wanted to say was that um, they're all about love,
Hmm.
right? They're all about love, and that's a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing. Um, but why not do what Christ actually wanted, right? Because the Roman Catholic Church, right? So Rome was in power at the time of Christ, so they did change the message. I believe that Jesus was looking to make leaders like him, and
Hmm.
sort of have everyone rise up and raise the vibration of the planet. And I think that's what we're going through now. And I
Yeah.
think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful.
For sure, yeah. As kind of organized religion isn't necessarily fading, but as we're all finding ourselves a little bit more, it's interesting. I mean, even science kind of has gotten spiritual in a way. I've been thinking a lot about the quote, "Life finds a way." Like,
Right.
right, even when you look at like the scientific side of things, like we're all spiritually evolving, and that evolution just has like a physical manifestation to it.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
And
that's
then so then I went to university, and I was a very pious Roman Catholic, very pious. And I love Jesus, I love God, I love my religion.
awesome.
And I said, but something didn't sit right with me with it. It never did, even as a child, because whenever I would get these thoughts, I would go to a priest. I'm like, okay, so, and they would say, oh, this is of the occult. You should just stay away from that. That's of the devil. And I'm like,
Right.
well, I'm like, okay, but you can only put something in a box for so long,
Hmm.
because it kind of in my early adulthood, it kind of exploded,
Hmm.
and it landed me questioning reality. Um, and that was a very difficult point in my life. And now I look back and I see that as my gifts just waking
Yeah,
up.
absolutely.
And then also in university, uh, I took part of a course called Music and Spirituality.
Mhm.
And one of the papers was to write a paper on taking part of a religious experience not of your own religion, or spiritual experience not of your own religion. So I told my prof, I said, listen, I go, I've done every religion, I've studied them all, I kind of understand where they all come with, which is why I can make the assertion that they're all about love, because they are. Um,
Mhm.
and I want to try something different. So do you have any ideas? And he said, well, how would you feel doing something with with the indigenous people of Canada? I go, I would love to.
That's
So,
cool.
so he said, why don't you talk to my TA? So I talked to the TA. She set me up with a group in Coldwater. It's a very good, very cool uh, center, and they were having sweats. So I said, okay. Um, I showed up. I think the sweat happened at night. What's supposed to happen at like 7? I showed up at like 4 because I'm like here, right? So I
Yeah.
go there, and I walk up to them, and I'm like, "Hey, is there anything I can do to help?" And the shaman looks at me. I didn't know he was a shaman at the time. He looks at me and says, "Yeah, yeah, come on back." He goes, hands me 2 big full garbage bags of cedar. And he goes, "What I want you to do is I want you to separate the dead cedar from the live cedar, because we want this sweat to be about life, not death." So, okay,
Interesting.
not a problem. Yeah. So I'm sitting there, I'm going through the cedar, I'm spending all this time. It became like a meditation, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing this. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So, anyways, it comes back, and when it's time for the sweat, and I'm like, he goes, "Are you done yet?" I go, "No, I got another bag to do. Like, this is a lot of cedar." He goes, "Don't worry about that. Let's go. We're gonna use the cedar you went through for the sweat." So when we went to the sweat, um, I can't really talk about what happened in the sweat because that's kind of like taboo. But what I can say is that some of the things that I felt in there, some of the way the spirits interacted with me,
Yeah.
it was very humbling. Like, for example, I felt an animal spirit tap my knee, right?
They say your
Um,
knee?
my knee, yeah. And I'm like, okay, did someone put a little animal in here? Like, what? Like, I didn't know what was going on. And I was a doubting Thomas at the time as well. So like, I would doubt everything that's
Yep.
spiritual. And then when they would, this I can talk about. They would call in the four corners, and the teepee would move, and I'd hear the winds.
Oh, cool. Yeah, right.
And I'm like, okay, so then after all this happened, I mean, what I can't talk about is what was said by the actual participants, right? That's what I
Yeah.
can't talk about. But anyway, so when I went in, when I went outside, I said, I was actually nervous because I'm like, okay, so the animal that touched me, I mean, I thought I ran over a skunk on the way up to the sweat. So it's like,
Uh,
I asked the shaman, I go, was it the skunk? He goes, no, you would have known if it was a skunk. It was a smell. And I'm like, okay, what kind of animal was it? He goes, it was a prairie dog.
oh,
I
like you
said,
knew.
He knew, yeah, he knew. And then I asked him, I said, okay, so when the teepee was shaking and I heard the winds and stuff like that, well, what was that about? And he didn't answer. What he said was, he said to me, he said, are you sure you're not native?
Mhm.
And I said, yeah, man, I'm Italian. I speak it and everything. He goes, are you sure? I go, yeah. Both my parents are Italian. And then he said, how many sweats have you been to? And I said, this is my first one. And he said, wow. And I said, what do you mean, wow? I'm getting nervous now. He's
Yeah.
like, it's very rare for a white man to experience everything that you've experienced in their first sweat. And I'm like, okay, thank you. I took that as a compliment. And then we went and had a potluck because I had brought some stuff for the sweat. And there's stuff there's a protocol for the sweat that you have to do and stuff like that. But that after that, I knew there was an unseen world. It was
Yep.
just a matter of how can I serve it now.
Mhm.
So I realized that I was serving, I was basically doing customer service in one function or another on the phones, whatever. And I'm like, oh, I'm pretty much helping people. That's probably what I'm supposed to be doing here. So I actually took an NLP course. And this is recently, this is in 2018. And I took the NLP course. Oh, no, wait, 2016. I took
And
the
what
NLP,
is NLP?
Neuro Linguistic Programming.
Cool.
So what that is techniques on how to bring yourself into different states,
Mhm.
and through the conscious use of language, right? Like for example, if I say to you, think of a time that you were very, 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 very happy. Feel the feelings, smell the smells, hear the sounds, da, 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 da. And then you actually your state that you're feeling will actually bring you to that state again.
Yeah.
So you're using that picture in your mind to bring about that state, right? So that's just like a gloss over all the stuff that I learned. But anyways, I learned that and I said, okay, I'm going to do this. So I graduated, I became an NLP practitioner. And what happened was no one would come.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so no one's coming. So should I continue to do this or whatever? I'm like, I don't know. So I didn't know what to do. And then it just so happened that as I was promoting my NLP course through meetups at things, I met a wonderful woman who I now consider my spiritual mother. And she said, why don't you come learn Reiki? And I said, and I'd always been wary of learning Reiki. I had been reading while I was, well, just the entire time, but while I was doing, when it was suggested I do Reiki, I was like, okay, sure. So I did. And I think that was the beginning of 2018 or 19. And within a few years, I became a master. And
Nice.
as a master, it's very interesting because it's like you're aware of energies, you're aware of auras, you can see stuff, and like and then it evolves. And then, like for example, I learned how to do pranic healing. I learned how to do pranic healing by seeing something and pulling it out of them. Right? I don't know
Yeah.
what I'm I didn't know what I was doing. And then another mentor of mine said, he said, "You're doing pranic healing," and he's a shaman, so
Right, like
he
you were
knows.
doing it before you knew what it was almost?
Before I knew what it was. Well, he was explaining to me on how to do it as well, but he's like, "Try this," and it would work. Um, yeah, so that's been kind of my story. I mean, I am a healer, but I do the readings, and I know that the readings I do, I'm healing people while I read.
Yeah, like a psychological, spiritual kind of yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And you can see it in people, I don't know how, like I don't know if it's kosher to talk about, but I've had a lot of people cry during, specifically tarot card readings, not as much astrology, but tarot cards. Every once in a while, you'll be talking it through and you look up and you're like, man, is this resonating with them? And then you see it wash over them.
Mhm. And that's why I always bring Kleenex with me.
That's better
Always.
than I'm doing. Yeah. No.
I always bring Kleenex with me. And the other thing too is I have a deck, and it was there that day, but I don't think I used it on you. It's called the blind spot. Did I use that one?
No, it was an angel tarot.
Yeah, I use the angel tarot because I think I reserve that for if they want me to use it or not. But basically, it's a blind spot of your personality, that something that you're not seeing in yourself. And I've had people just like, I've triggered them with that deck. So I always bring um, um,
Bring it just in case.
Kleenex just in case. Yeah.
I'll bring the Kleenex. Yeah. I have
Yeah.
a residency and I was the woman who runs it actually puts Kleenex out now when I have readings there because I forget to bring them, but she was like, no, I see that. And a pitcher of water so I can give people water too. She's
That's a good idea. I should start doing that to these
yeah,
shows. Yeah.
it kind of grounds people and gives them cools them down on the inside when they're getting a little
Right.
heated or like having big emotions.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, so that's kind of how I started. And then years after the uh, sweat and before I did the NLP, I met a woman, not my wife, it was an ex-girlfriend. She taught me how to read. So she taught me how to read, and she was a really, 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 really special medium. And she bought me my first deck, which is the one I used for you.
Cool. Nice.
And I kind of owe it to her, and I thank her for it. And I do. Obviously, the relationship didn't work, just because we were at each other's throats all the time, and just became bothersome. But yeah.
Yeah, some people there's more friction than there is cohesion, and that's like kind of natural. It seems like on your journey, it's really been like you're open, like you're willing to try it, and then it clicks for you because it's interesting. I think most people, not most people, but some other people would be like, well, I don't want to go to a sweat, or no, I don't want to take NLP, and then they would have just lost those experiences. But just being open to it, you've definitely, it sounds like you've had a progression.
There has been some sort of regression, and I know it's divinely guided because I've been told it's divinely guided. And I'll go to sleep and wake up and feel different. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what just happened.
Yeah.
And then I try to piece it together after, because I know I'm transmuting energy while I'm sleeping. I know that's what I do. Because I'll wake up completely in a different state, and it'll feel like something's changed. Right.
I know if you're in tap with kind of shamanic energy, they say a lot of shamanic energy is dream work, right?
Mhm.
Like you're able to like I'm not quite sure. I've read a book a long time ago, but I think it's like if someone comes to you with a problem or something, you're able to, or some people are able to go through their dreams and kind of find that person's problems and bring them back or fix them in there. Yeah, which is a really cool thing. So do you have a lot of vivid dreams?
The ones I can remember, I do.
Yep.
For example, there's been the one recently. How did that go? I was spitting out my teeth, but my
Hate
teeth
that
weren't.
dream.
But my teeth weren't teeth. They
Oh,
were
wait,
rose
what?
quartz crystals.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm pulling them out, and they're rose quartz crystals, and I'm like, why are they rose quartz crystals?
Yeah.
So that was interesting. And believe it or not, I actually did a dream interpretation on ChatGPT, which I didn't know ChatGPT does the dream interpretation. It was pretty interesting what it said. I can't remember exactly what it said at this point, but
As more people are using ChatGPT in the spiritual sense, I'm noticing that it's I mean, it's learning, it's machine learning, but it's almost like I use it a little bit in astrology. And I know that my idol astrologically, his name is David Brennan. He uses it, and it's almost like I feel like I have access to his assistant.
well, there you go. And that's
You
it. And
know?
that's what it is. And that's how it should be used. That's how all AI should be used, as an assistant.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely. Checking it through and stuff like that.
because I don't know if you've heard that there's a Facebook thing where they're interviewing an alien, and the alien says that, what did he say? I can't remember. Something to the effect of supercomputers in the future is going to destroy the population, and they said, well, how can we avert it? This is in the 60s. This is like apparently in the 60s. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But
Yeah.
but the alien says limit its intelligence.
Yeah.
Limit its intelligence, and I'm like, okay, how do you do that? Because if they're learning, right?
Yep.
Eventually they're gonna supersede their programming. Right? But yeah.
It does take a lot of human touch, though. Like it might be able to tell you the facts of it, but just like in like the books you use, right? It takes the intuitive side of a human being to be able to find that, to follow the energy to where it needs to be, and then interpret it. So, I mean, it's a good assistant, but it'll always take a human touch, I think, especially in readings and stuff like
I
that.
do too. Yeah. I do too. I think, yeah.
That's awesome. Do you have any other experiences you want to share? I mean, these are really interesting.
I'm just trying to think. I mean, here's one. This scared me. Okay, so I had sleep paralysis for a while, and I know what sleep paralysis is. I know the medical term and what it does and whatever, but spiritually, that was not what was happening. I went downstairs one day when I was going through my second divorce, and I was saying, I'm going to sleep down here because the basement's cooler. I didn't want to go in the bedroom, and I'm sleeping. And all of a sudden, I feel a weight on my chest. And now I'm not awake. I'm awake at this point. I'm not asleep yet. I feel a weight on my chest, and I can't move.
Mhm.
I can't talk either. So I'm having a paralysis moment, a sleep paralysis moment while I'm awake. So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay. I'm like, so what I do is I would think of Jesus, because the power of Jesus, and think of Jesus, and usually that does it, but it wasn't working at this point. And I'm like, okay, I call on every archangel I know. Michael, Raphael, Uriel, Metatron, all of them. Come and help me here. Nothing. As soon as I said, Mom, Dad, please help me, and they'd already passed on, thing was gone. And I felt it go through I felt it go into my cellar.
That gave me chills. That's beautiful. That's actually
And
really beautiful.
and what's interesting is the next day I came down to the same basement to work out, because I was working out quite a lot at that point of my life. And I heard a voice. I literally heard a voice say, look up. And I looked up, and out of the drop ceiling, there was what looked like a cobweb, but it wasn't a cobweb. It was solid. It was a golden bracelet from when I was a child. It was one of mine.
Oh,
And
cool.
it was in this black ink. So there was like a black goo on it. And I'm like, okay, I pulled that down. I put it on a piece of paper, and I just threw it out of the house. Years later, I realized my ex-wife was a witch.
Yep.
She probably put that there. And it was like the voice was my guardian angel saying, look at that. And it is what it is. I mean, I don't begrudge her. I mean, it was a difficult situation with our relationship, so she had to do everything she could to get her
emotions out, like kind of blow steam or express something. Yeah, that's a tough.
Yeah, but that was the one thing that scared me. That was the one time where I was a little nervous about that, but then it's like, okay, well, it is what it is. And right away I called up my girlfriend at the time, which was the medium that I was talking about, and she's like, you got to sell that house.
Yeah, that energy builds up, it gunks up, and you never know, maybe the next person will be able to move through it, but if it's your energy, then cutting yourself off from it is a good idea, really. I mean, that's why we leave those relationships that don't work out.
Right.
And typically, once you leave them and you acknowledge that and you grow as a person, I mean, that's when you find the person that you should be with, right?
You're right.
And then you learn the lessons you need to learn from the other people, right? And they learn what they
Or you
need to
go through
learn.
them again until you, and this time you do learn them. You know what I mean? Like, because
Yeah.
for example, a lot of the reasons that I've had these breakups is because of the fact that I was resistant to the lessons that I needed to learn.
Yeah.
And now in this relationship, I'm learning them, and I'm trying to keep that whole. Right. So,
Yeah, and then making those mistakes. I mean, I'm really lucky to be with Mason after some of the relationships I've been through. And I for sure, I think a lot of it was acknowledging. It's easy to blame other people, but once you start accepting the mistakes I started accepting the mistakes that I had made, it became easier to really know how to treat another person, and then
Mhm.
you're able to not have those compounding issues because it gets to be like a snowball, right? It just gets bigger and bigger. If
right.
you can kind of break those tensions and learn how to work through them, then
One
usually it's a
thing
lot smoother.
One thing that I would say is that if you work with your interpersonal skills and keep this in mind, everyone's working with the knowledge and skills that they have at the time.
Hmm.
If you realize that for whatever reason the person does something negative towards you, you realize that, well, they're either doing it, they're doing it from their own sort of upbringing and their own sort of like little sort of bubble of
Yeah.
knowing, right? You can't really blame them for that because they may or may not know why they're doing it,
Hmm.
but at the end of the day, they're doing the best they can with what they have, right? And,
Yeah.
and it kind of lets them off the hook, but it kind of doesn't, because you have to take responsibility for your action in to bring, maybe you're bringing that out of them, right, as well too.
Yeah. I know exactly. That's a great way to put it, really. We have what we can work with from what we've been given, right? And developing it yourself. I mean, a lot of people still have a lot of trauma from childhood and stuff like that. And it really takes a lot of experience to be able to move past it and like learn how to, like, I don't know if this is the right term, but parent yourself, really.
Yep.
Because our parents
Your inner child needs a
are,
parent.
yeah,
Sorry.
your inner child. That's a great way to put it. There's a quote I like that's don't let the hurt child inside of you make your grown decisions. And that one really opened my eyes.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. I try to aspire to that too. Yeah.
Nice. So this has been a great conversation. I'm not quite sure how long it's gone on for. It feels like pretty short, pretty long at the same time. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Well, not that I can think of experience wise. This is me.
Nice. Yeah. So the last thing to go over is just where can anyone listening or looking, where can they find you? And where can they get a reading from you? Because I know for me personally, if anyone's listening or watching, I really suggest working with him.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Prue. Well, I will be in Hamilton this upcoming weekend. I'll be in Mississauga the following weekend at the same group of shows. If you want to get a hold of me, the best way to do that would be through email at celestialharmony13 at hotmail.com or ca. Let me double check that.
No,
I think it's
I gotcha. .com.
perfect. Thanks. Or you can call me, and my phone, or you can also see me at you can see my website. My website is www.celestialharmonyreadingsandreiki, all written out.com. It has a bit about me. There's an option, I believe, for you to book, but I don't think it's working. So the best thing to do is my phone number's on that website, and so is my email. So just, yeah, that's the best way to get hold of me.
Yeah, and if anyone's looking to book a reading, it's really good advice to go straight to the reader. Booking through our websites and stuff like that, I know for me specifically, is a great way to do it. But if you contact me directly, I'm always really willing to work with people. well, obviously for people too, but work with people on time schedules, ways to talk.
Right.
Yeah. So I think if anyone's ever intimidated to reach out to any of us, make sure that you realize that we're here for you, right?
Exactly.
There's,
I
yeah.
mean, I'm here, I've been called to serve. I know that. It's taken me 50 years of being stubborn and not wanting to serve to realize that I'm here to serve.
Yeah, and honestly though, that stubbornness and that drive has gotten you where you are step by
Right.
step, and without that, you wouldn't be able to do it as well, right? It's
And,
context, it's maturity.
and it also has humbled me to being able to help, right? Like humbled me with the knowledge that it's a blessing what I do for people. That's what I
Nice.
see.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great way to put it. I always say it's everyone talks about like whoever's passed on or the energy beyond in different ways, but I always refer to them as the ghosts. It's kind of just a light way to put it, but I always say the ghosts are my boss.
For me, it comes higher than that, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, definitely. This is awesome. And the last thing I'll say is for like the thumbnail to each video, I draw whoever we're interviewing as a rabbit. What kind of rabbit would you see yourself as? Maybe more like a hare?
Probably a hare, yeah. Probably more like a hare.
Like that wild energy.
Yeah.
I definitely picked that up from you. Cool. So for the thumbnail, expect to see like a little rabbit version of yourself, and I'm so glad that we got to talk to you. Mason's over there fully agrees, definitely. Yeah, he tapped out a little bit of ago, but
No worries.
yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Been a pleasure on my end as well.
Nice. Thank you so much. You're the first person from the fairs who reached back out. I didn't email all 14 of you. I did like 5 to start. I don't want to be bothering anyone or like seem like a spammer or anything. So I'm kind of trying to go even. We'll probably be at either Mississauga or Hamilton. So hopefully I see you again.
Hopefully we will. Take care.
Nice. Have a great one.
You too.